I welcome all the participants in today's webinar, and I welcome Tushar Gandhi sir, Manga ma'am, A.K. Pandey sir, Professor Narayan sir in today's webinar. And now I request Professor Narayan sir to start with today's webinar.
Okay, thank you, Shramshita. Uh, on behalf of Society for Empowerment, I welcome Sri Tushar Gandhi ji and Sri Manga, Madam Manga, and Dr. A.K. Pandey, who is our chairperson now. And today we are discussing Gandhi ji and peace. So Tushar Gandhi ji has some other engagement also. So, uh, and Tushar Gandhi ji does not need any introduction. He himself, he has written he has done a lot of work on Gandhi ji, and he is great grandson of Gandhi ji, and he is a very serious author. So now I will request him to begin his presentation, and Sri Tushar Gandhi ji.
Thank you very much, Professor Saab. It's a privilege to be here with all of you. Unfortunately, there's something wrong with my camera, and so the picture is not too good. But I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes, we can see you.
Uh, Thank you very much for this invitation to come and speak to all of you on the subject of Gandhi and peace. And I think what we need to realize in these times of war and war clouds and a very concerted campaign of hate that has gripped all of us is that, as Bapu always maintained, if peace has to become prevalent, then peace has to begin with ourselves first. And unless that happens, we really don't have a chance for peace to become prevalent in society at all. Uh, as Bapu said, the greatest peace is the one that one feels within oneself and not outside of ourselves. And that, I think, includes, and especially in today's time of suspicion, prejudice, separatism, apartism, and keeping people differentiating between people and us and them in that kind of a manner, we need to come to terms with our nature itself. The fact that how we deal internally with everything. And for that to become prevalent, I think first we need to let go of what Bapu talked about as the self, because the problems of separatism start with a greater feeling of the self, a belief that we are superior to others. And that is the cause of the differences that we create within our people, ourselves, our society, and our country and nation. And so the sense of self needs to melt away. The ego of an individual needs to melt away. The other things that we need to get rid of are the prejudices that we have ingrained into ourselves, the prejudices about the practices of others, the ideals of others, the beliefs of others, and what we generally treat as nature of others. For peace to have a chance, we have to come to terms about respecting our differences, because whenever there are two individuals, there are bound to be differences. And if we merely tolerate each other's differences, then that friction is always going to remain. And so we need to understand why there are differences. We need to respect the other person's right to be different. And then from that, accept those differences and come to terms with it and live with it and realize that we ourselves are different from others. And so when we react with others, we respond to others, we must accept the differences from them also. And if we do all these things, then the hate that grows within us will start to dissipate. We will start to lessen the feeling of us and others between others, and then I think peace will have a chance. So instead of talking of peace as an external uh, attitude or as a different quality in life, I think we need to normalize peace within ourselves first. Because generally, when we talk about peace, we expect the other person to behave peacefully, and we sort of turn a blind eye towards our own self, our method of speech, our talk, our responses to others, our how we respond to others. All that nurtures peace, and that is where Bapu talked about the need for internal peace, the need for coming to terms with one's own self, our own contradictions, because our subconscious is always reminding us of how antagonistic we are in our attitude, in our behavior, in our nature with others. And so when we talk about peace, and I really don't see versions of peace. To me, there are no versions of peace. There is no Gandhian peace, or there is no Kingsian peace, or there is no Buddhism peace. Peace is a quality on its own, and different people have practiced it according to their own abilities and their own understanding of peace. And so, first, we have to come to terms and understanding of that peace ourselves before we think about peace as a quality that society has to adapt to. The other thing that we need to understand is anger, because when we talk about peace, we generally consider anger to be something that is non peaceful. And so we always talk about the need to remove anger from our nature and things. Yes, we need to lessen the responses that anger induces in us. That is very essential. But as Bapu said, if we learn to use anger as a fuel, as an energy to change situations, to convert them into a positive force rather than a negative force, then anger becomes productive, and anger leads to the creation of something beautiful and beneficial to everybody, to peace. And so we must also understand the power of anger and utilize it in a proper way, as Bapu compared it with electricity. We can use electricity in a productive manner. We can use electricity, or electricity can also be like the destructive electricity of a thunderstorm. When electricity falls, when lightning falls from the sky, it is a version of electricity, but it is a destructive version of electricity, and it destroys. But the electricity that we get in our homes, in batteries, in the power packs that we use to energize instruments that we utilize, that electricity is productive. It's the same electricity that falls in the form of lightning, but the result of the two electricities is very different. It is the same with anger. We need to understand that. And instead of demonizing anger, if we were to create or use it as a productive thing, then it would go a long way in becoming an instrument of sustainable peace, change that brings about peace, the transformation of reasons that create conflict. And that is what we must always understand. And so we must study peace in all its abilities, in all its power, in all its kinds, and only then can we come to terms with peace. And so I very strongly suggest that peace is not only considered to be an alternative to conflict, but peace has to become a way of life, a way of living with our own selves. And then from that, as Bapu, the paraphrased saying of Bapu, be the change you wish to see in the world, peace will become the change of the agent, the peace that starts with our own self. And so that is what we must all aspire towards becoming always. I'll just state a story. I don't know if I have narrated this story in my previous talks on this group, but I think in today's the subject of today's this becomes very contextual. And this happened. My father witnessed this incident happening in Pune in 45-46 when concerned with Sardar Patel's deteriorating health. Bapu insisted that Sardar Patel stop all the work that he was doing in Delhi and join him in Pune for a nature cure treatment, which would be supervised with by Bapu to restore Sardar Patel's health. And Sardar Sahib came to Pune, and Bapu and Sardar Sahib both checked into the nature cure clinic of Dr. Jivraj Mehta in Pune. My father and grandmother, who were visiting from South Africa, also joined them at the clinic along with the other members of Bapu's entourage. Bapu's instructions at that time were that in the mornings, for 3 hours, he would supervise the treatment that Sardar Patel was undergoing and ensure that it was done systematically. And so, for that time, he was not to be disturbed by anything. He would not meet anybody, he would not speak with anybody, and he was not to be disturbed. One day, while Bapu was administering the treatment to Sardar Sahib, a young man came and wanted to meet Bapu. My father told him that, Bapu cannot be disturbed, so you will have to wait till Bapu is free. After some time, the young man said, I cannot wait indefinitely for Gandhi, but I have a gift for him. But I want you to promise that only he will open this gift. My father said, okay. My grandmother told my father, she said, accept the gift and keep it. And when Bapu finishes with Sardar Sahab's treatment and he is free, you can give it to him. And they told the young man, and the young man left. When Bapu became free, my father was very excited because it was a very big basket, very nicely wrapped and decorated. And my father thought it must be a fantastic gift inside such a beautiful package. So when Bapu was free, my father told him that a friend had come and he's left a gift, but he has said that only Bapu can open it. And so Bapu said, okay, bring the gift. My father went and brought the basket. It was quite heavy also. So my Bapu told my father, he said, open it, let's see what this gift is. When my father opened the wrappings, to everybody's horror, they discovered that it was filled with torn and old used footwear, chappals and shoes and sandals. That was intended to be an insult to Bapu. And everybody was horrified at such a rude offering to Bapu. But Bapu laughed and he said, "Oh, what a precious gift this is." My father said, "Bapu, how can this be a precious gift? It is useless. It is of no use at all. It's old, torn footwear." So Bapu said, "Arun, I want you to take it to the the waste market and sell it. Old used thing." So my father and his cousin, they took the basket and they sold it to the old used goods merchant, and they got about 3 or 4 rupees for it, which they brought back to Bapu. And Bapu said, "Now go and deposit this money as a gift from an unknown benefactor in the Harijan relief fund." So my father did that. That evening at the public prayer meeting, when the public was allowed to come in to listen to Bapu, in his discourse, Bapu narrated the incident and thanked the unknown friend and benefactor for that precious gift. And he said that he had sold the gift and he had deposited the funds in the Harijan relief fund. The man who had given that gift had thought that Bapu would take it as an insult and would criticize the gift. And so he would be able to mock him and say, "Look, you can't even appreciate a gesture and you become angry, so you're not a Mahatma." But when the way Bapu responded to that rude gift, the young man became very angry and he started shouting and he said, "That belonged to me, you had no right to sell it. So I demand that you give that money back to me." Bapu said, "Look, you gave me the gift, I accepted it, so it became mine and it was my right to do whatever I wanted to do. So I have sold it and now I've deposited the money in the Harijan fund. I can't take it back. So the only thing I'll do is thank you." The man became very angry and everybody thought that maybe he'll become violent. So he was led away from the prayer meeting. And then soon everybody forgot about the incident. In 1948, my grandmother and my father had gone back to South Africa. When they heard the news about Bapu's murder, the next day the South African newspapers carried the news of Bapu's murder with a photograph of the murderer. When my grandmother saw that photograph, she called my father and she said, "Isn't this the same man who had given that basket full of footwear to Bapu in Pune?" My father saw Nathuram Godse's photo and he said, "Yes, this is the same man who had done that." Now look what a very hate-filled episode can do. Bapu did not consider it to be an insult, used it productively, and turned it into a positive thing and forgot about it. Nathuram Godse could not get rid of his anger and he ended up murdering Bapu. This is the power of anger and hate, what it leads to. But it only all depends on how we use it, how we respond with it, how we react with it. And that is where, when we talk about peace, we must also talk about anger, but talk about it in a positive manner, as a force, as an energy to make a difference, to make a change in a positive, constructive manner. That is the essence of peace that we must all adopt and make into a habit. Only then will peace prevail in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tushar Gandhi ji. You have made a very good presentation and lesson to us for younger generation that if they want peace, they have to leave anger. And otherwise, anger leads to destructive forces and then society become full of negative thoughts and all that, and then the progress cannot take place, neither of the betterment of the humanity, not for the betterment of the society. So thank you very much. Now we have another speaker, uh, Mangaji, Madam Mangaji. She is a political leader in USA, and she is also great follower of Gandhi ji. So now I will request her to present her views. I'm thankful that in spite of your fever and your not keeping good health, you have come to this program. So this is something great, and we wish you speedy recovery of your health also. Thank you.
Namaskar, Professor Ji. Namaskar, Pandey Ji. And Namaskar, Tushar Gandhi Ji. I mean, it's my honor to be on this platform. I could not say definitely no to this one because this subject is very close to my heart, Gandhiji and peace. There are so many lessons for us to learn from Gandhism and Gandhism way of peace. It can be interpreted in different ways and implemented also in different ways, in different forms of how you use it. To me, I've always perceived when I was an activist, I have taken Gandhism way of peace to express not my anger, but in a positive way, what the outcome we want and what is it that I want to convey. If Gandhiji was all about peace and no rights, there never would have been freedom movement and there never would have been a revolution in South Africa. He stood for self-respect, justice, and honor of every human life. I think that is the greatest lesson we have to take from Gandhian peace. Was he happy and did he take the insult that was done to him in a train just because he was a brown man? No, he did not take that insult kindly. And he protested and he let people know that it was an injustice and discrimination and it will not be taken kindly. And he set a path, a very clear path, and a message for the rest of the world that never to take an aggression but to rebut with our strong and peaceful protest. And the way he did it, if we all understood Gandhi and his principles and what he did in his satyagraha, for everything he would go for satyagraha. If you read Gandhi's biography, where in important events did he not use the satyagraha? For everything he used satyagraha. I started analyzing why he did and started reading lot of psychology books, and that's when I came across one concept, passive aggression. That is the most effective and dangerous tool for your enemy. That is the most calculated risk, or I should say risk free proposition and a protest. Yes, he almost went all the way to death, and still, in the last moment, nobody would want Gandhiji dead. They had to listen to his demands, and he got his demands. The biggest lesson for me to become a successful activist is Gandhi's best way of peaceful protest. Never give up your aim, what you wanted to be that change. And knowing the psychology, I think he must have mastered psychology to have actually manipulated and took the control of this entire world. Now Gandhiji is an icon of peace. But everyone talks about his peace protests too. He set a path forward for a success even when you protest in a peaceful way. But even though I personally follow my principles of Gandhian peace, there are also, I always ask two questions. I'm using this principle in a spiritual way, in a spiritual context, in a spiritual setting, or I'm using this for a change and in a political situation. We have to learn to take his principles with the context that we are dealing with. Sometimes, even in a political situation, like excellent anecdote of Tushar Gandhi ji, what Bapu would have had done with that basket of chappals. I'd like to share one quick anecdote. My own campaign trail in 2020. I was such a disappointment for lot of Indians because I am a Republican. They could not digest the fact that I was standing alongside the Republicans to be in politics. But my choices are choices. And I think I have made a right choice to keep up my Hindu values. To me, my Hindu values are the most cherished values, and my Gandhian peace principles are that so close to my heart. I have to be able to make good choices and also in a very guilt free way. I cannot live with guilt, so therefore, I have to pick my path. And during my campaign, I was poll hopping, meaning there were early voting in 7 places in my congressional district, and I used to go to every polling place from morning until night it closed to each polling place depending on their peak times and talk and shake my hands with every voter standing in the line. There used to be thousands of people standing in the line in places, and I would not leave even one voter without saying hello and shaking hands and asking them to vote for me. And during one of these occasions, one Indian woman, almost from a very distance, started shouting and abusive language and everything in a loudspeaker, and she kept on going. I stopped and I let her finish. When I was still continuing to do it, she got very even more aggressive. So I gave her that time, let her feel satisfied that I'm listening to her, that I am there, even though she was there to abuse me. I stood there, let her finish her abuses. And then I said, are you done, ma'am? Then I started going about with talking to the voters in the line. And that made her very angry. She ran up to me, charging up, and came and spat on my face. Literally, she spat on my face. And this is an Indian woman. She must be in her mid 30s or something. And everybody was very upset that insulting a congressional candidate in the campaign is a federal offense and it's a criminal offense. And they were calling cops. I said, stop. And the man who was always my campaign manager with me, he was mad. I stopped him. Just let me take care of this situation. I know with thousands of people, it was going to be a detrimental situation, an aggressive situation. Somebody gave me water to wash my face, and somebody gave me a fresh towel to dry my face. And I said, let her go. All I remembered was, I know she must be a young mother. Her children and husband must be home, and maybe even dependent parents or family members. At that moment, I was not thinking her insult on me, but what the consequences of her actions be if I got her arrested. That would have been a criminal case that would have put her away in the jail for several years. But sometimes I think, even today, when I think of it, when people recognize me as that candidate who gracefully took that insult, and I told them there is a family waiting for that woman back home, let her go. I think these principles are hard to put in practice, but then when put in practice, I think they set a very clear path for success. And that day, everybody standing in that line, thousands of people, they said, they started cheering for me, manga, manga, manga. And they said, you got our votes. You don't have to give your pitch. You got our vote, you got our vote. So I was walking back to my car, and people stood on both sides all the way, walking me to the car, cheering for me. That is the power of Gandhian way of peace. But was I at peace in my mind? Definitely, I was at peace in my mind, because I know I let a family and children have their mother. And today, and yesterday, I was in a convention of 600 people, and there were 9 candidates in the room. And I think the entire crowd was standing in the line only to shake hands with me and tell me what they think of me, the way that day I handled that situation. Now it has become a story for people to talk about. And I told them yesterday, I'm a Gandhian believer. That is where my values come from. And my grandfather himself fought along Gandhiji in the freedom fight. I think living a Gandhian peace is the biggest gift the world can ever get. But that doesn't mean I'm always ready to take the insult. I know when to give it back. I know how to fight for my rights. And I always stood up for my rights to get what I deserve. I never let go of what I deserve, but I do it in a very diplomatic, peaceful Gandhian way. That is my success story. Today, I have broken all records in politics in Virginia. I had scored the highest raw votes in the last 10 years, and I carried the precincts. Carrying precincts means wiping 100% of that precinct, not allowing my opponent to have one single vote. That's how much I swept, only because the way I came across that I am tough, I stand for my freedom and right, but also maintain that peace to be able to represent people as a leader. It just did not come to me natural, but it was fed as my morning breakfast. It was fed by my family and father as my lunch, my snack, and dinner, telling us the stories of my grandfather and his interaction with Gandhiji. And I think I'm really honored to be sharing this stage with Tushar Gandhiji and also be in politics and how it really helps following these principles. And I would always tell people use your diligence, use the peace principles of Gandhiji in contextual way. That doesn't mean give up your rights. Stand for your rights, stand for your freedom. Never compromise on your rights and freedom. Yet you can still do it peacefully. And that's the message I think we can all agree on and follow that principle. Dhanyavad. And I really thank Pandeji and Narayanji and Tusharji for having uh, patience to listen to my anecdote and giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Mangaji. You have narrated the power of peace and power of patience, which you learned from Gandhiji, which you have adopted and which you are practicing in your political life in USA. That is something great that you are doing. That's a matter of proud for us. For in India, people feel proud that yes, there we have a representative there in Virginia, USA. So thank you very much, and also thank you for coming to this program. I remember while working with Tana Bhagat. Tana Bhagat is a tribe of Chotanagpur, that is Jharkhand state now. There you have the one late evening. I was sitting with Tana Bhagats. Then the so-called the terrorists and the Naxalites, they came to them and they asked for food. The poor chap said, "We have nothing to give you. Whatsoever we have prepared, we finished it. So now, if you want to have a food, you just go whatsoever is there in the house. You cook yourself and eat. We will have no objection." Even then, they said that no, you cook for us. They said no, we cannot cook it. We have learned from Gandhiji that if you cook your food and if you eat your food, then you don't cook food again the same night. So we are not going to make any food for you. If you want, you can have it whatsoever is in the house. So they were beating them mercilessly, but they didn't yield. Tanavaka didn't yield. And you know that Gandhiji during Ramgarh Congress went and stayed with these Tanavagas only for 2 days. His 2 days stays with the Tanavagat has made so much impact that even today, if you go to them, you will find that how they are practicing the Gandhian way of life. They are they are still practicing using charka and doing all those things which Gandhiji used to do throughout the day, and then before going to bed he used to have his own prarthana. So they are still practicing it. So this is one of the example of peace. Peacefully, you can make people aware of this lifestyle and aware of uh, adopting the peaceful life. So that is very much there, we can see even today. And there is also a similar tribal group in Bastar, Chhattisgarh. They are also the Gandhians. So there are some examples which we need to know and we need to practice their things also. Now I will request Dr. A.K. Pandey to say uh, something on this peace and Gandhiji.
Hello, is my sound clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Professor Narayan. Uh, I am I am joining the webinars from so many sessions and a long term, and every time I could say something which I understand Gandhi as uh, as Satya and Ahimsa and non-violence. Now suddenly, the today's session is on Gandhi and peace. When I started thinking about the subject, the first thing which came to my mind is that we appreciate and praise Gandhi as the freedom fighter, as the biggest and greatest commander of our struggle for freedom. And that again with ahimsa, satya, and non-violence. Whenever there is fight, there is violence. Whenever there is war, there is violence, bloodshed, everything. So, though I personally reconcile that yes, war can be non-violent. War can be with peace and discussions and logic. War can be on demanding the conscience of other party. But somehow today, I must admit that I have got enlightened by Mr. Tushar Gandhi's version, who explained in one simple example, which I was trying to explain in so many words. And that was the thunderstorm and our home electricity. Both are same things. Thunderstorm has got the same energy, and the powerhouse from which electricity comes to our houses has got same electricity. The only thing is that it is controlled in a constructive manner, while the other one is natural and normal reaction of of the particles which are nearby. So the second interesting thing which I came to know and I must share with it, that I was very carefully listening that what Gandhiji did when the old used shoes appeared before him in the basket, in the package. Now I was very curious to know that what a person, because I knew there was another great person who had got passed through the same misery. Many of us must be knowing about Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, who went to the then kings and rulers of the country for creating a university at Varanasi, Kashi. And everybody used to give him something. Okay, you have got great work, we give something. But Nizam Hyderabad, as soon as he saw, he said, I have only shoes for you, and just threw. I mean, that is what we have heard. And Pandit Malvi took those shoes with great honor, lifted it, said thank you, and went away. And interestingly, he announced in the papers that shoes of Maharaja and shoes of Nizam are going to be sold by the greatest bidder in that place. With such an interesting incident that it forced Nizam himself to repurchase his own shoes with a handsome donation to the cause of Mahamna. So, as soon as the next lines I heard, it filled me with joy that the shoes were sold and very. That is the reaction a constructive person gives to an action which is normally intended to hurt or make him feel smaller. Let us understand that we humans, who are in societies, in groups, in other organizations, their rules of movement are different. We really run by ego, by our ethos, by our experiences, by love, by hate, by anger, and by happiness. And therefore, very correctly, he has pointed out that anger is the important motive force beyond be, for our actions and reactions. But what to do of this anger? The two aspects of anger have been one constructive and other just normal reaction. So here comes the what subject has said, Gandhi and peace. We in the society have desire to progress. In progress, there is competition. In competition, you have opponents whom you have to defeat. And when there are opponents, there are actions and reactions and other thing. Some of the opponents are not very fair, and their actions really create an anger in our mind, which takes us to a particular direction of construction, to our activities. And interesting thing about the great people is that their reaction is not the one which has been designed by the opponent, but their action is one which is such a simple, such an innocent that nobody can quarrel with that action. As our beloved Mr. Gandhi just said, that the opponent came him. He wanted something that he should angry. He wanted return, but because the action was Mr. Gandhi was such an innocent that out of thousands of people he could justify that, well, you gave me gift. I used it as I wished to a good purpose of my country. In his own life also, it always reminds to me that the spark of anger, Mr. Gandhi, got ignited when he was thrown out of the first class coach in Africa despite having valid ticket properly bought. But naturally, as a great person, he didn't react to the anger like any other simple person would have reacted. He he ate back that anger at that time, calculated all the consequences, and found out after coming to India that how to attack the root cause of that what had happened to cause that anger. His anger was not to shout, to push back, to follow a lawsuit, but he started such a movement which clearly said that we don't like this, but which also clearly said that we don't like wish to harm you also. and that pushed events to such an extent that we got freedom in the end. Now, some people say that as on today, perhaps Gandhi's principles of peace are not there, age of competition has come, and all those things. But it is to be understood that if somebody can manage our anger, we are already defeated. If we are in a competition with somebody with whom we have got conflict, and if he can manage what we act by some exciting words, by some exciting actions, then actually we are his slave because we are under his control. And we have to refuse to that control of other person if we have to go ahead in our own objectives and pursuits. Therefore, even today, this moderation of the action as per Gandhi's principles is valid, and we must study and go along with this. Uh, that is why I always praise that the society has taken a job, a project, a mission to translate the actions, the theme of Gandhi, which was at that time before the independence, to today's world, today's people, today's language, and today's circumstances. All my good wishes are there, and I must thank the speakers, which have enlightened me in such a aspect, removing so many doubts of the history, how things happened, and have given new light to our society also, a new courage, new understanding. So, thanks everybody for listening me carefully, and we hope to go ahead with our mission with everybody else's support and contribution, intellectual or whatsoever. Thank you, sir. Everybody, thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pandey, for your enlightening uh, speech and what you have mentioned about the Banaras establishment of Banaras University by Malviya ji and how he went to Nizam of Hyderabad and he also how he auctioned the shoe which were given to him. This is a lesson for the upcoming generation, the younger generation, not only for India but for the globe, who can practice such things to make the society better, to provide education to all, and to move along with your mission without getting disturbed by such small things, which will always be there to detract you from the path of peace. Peace is a very essential part of the life, essential ingredient for the development of the society, the holistic development of the society or any country cannot be thought of in the absence of peace. We are also thankful to Tushar Gandhi ji, the great grandson of Gandhi ji, who is still uh, writing his experiences and analyzing the Gandhian views on current perspective. I'm very much thankful to him for sparing time for us. He is a very busy person, very busy activist, but he found some time for us. And also to Mangaji, because she, instead of having some fever, she made her presence here and shared her experiences of peace and truth. This is something great that she is practicing as a true Gandhian. We wish her more and more success in her political career in USA, and we assure her that we are always with her whenever she need. We will arrange programs on or webinar accordingly. So thank you very much, and thank you to this, Swam Siddha for coordinating the program, and for Dr. A.K. Pandey, who took some time to be with us. So thank you very much, and hope that when we organize another program again, and we request you, you will be here with us. Thank you. Namaste. Shamsita,
Yes, sir.
conclude the program.
Thank you so much for everybody, and especially I was really inspired by Manga ma'am when she shared her experience. I was really inspired, like how you controlled yourself, how you had a strong grip over yourself, and how you channelized your energy to just control the situation, and how actually you're right, because you should actually learn to forgive others. You should be in a state of peace, and you should actually be in a state of peace, because you don't know what the consequences might turn out to be if you actually get angry, which is absolutely right, because anger can have a huge load of wrong consequences, and you can really get into trouble. So definitely, in fact, anger itself leads to violence later on, if not from your side, but then from the other person's side also. So definitely, I really appreciate you, Manga ma'am, that you really inspired me to calm down myself. In fact, the way Tushar Gandhi ji also said that how Mahatma Gandhi ji channelized his anger, like in not anger exactly, but how Mahatma Gandhi ji actually laughed over this gift that was given to him. That was also a great thing to be heard. Like it's he actually did he from that from that insult, like he turned it is in Buddhism we have heard turning poison to medicine. So he actually ended up turning that anger is the poison. So that anger is the poison, and when you actually follow Gandhi's paths, when you follow the path of peace, you turn that poison into medicine. So it was really a beautiful thing in itself. These experiences of Madan Malviya Mohan ji, and also of Gandhi ji and Maga ma'am, it was really great. It was great. Thank you so much for today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaskar. And
Namaste.
Swayam, Siddharth, you have really summed it up very beautifully in a nutshell. And I
Thank
think
you.
you did a phenomenal job summing it up.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.